I want to talk about our friend, Mr. Peter Iwers, the ex-bass player from In Flames. I was actually trying to talk to him on their last tour that they did with Hell Yeah, because he had announced previous to the tour that it was going to be his last. And, you know, we God forbid, was lucky to do some shows with In Flames, and they were such a huge influence on us. And I'd say almost probably more than any other interview I've done, or I wouldn't call these interviews. These are conversations. Out of all the conversations I've had, this is the one where I felt the most fanboy of probably any of the other guests. In Flames was such a big influence on my playing and just as something to aspire to. And I just think they're one of the bands that has had one of the best careers, despite their changes. And I know a lot of people disagree. Some people like the old stuff, some people like the new stuff. But they just mean a lot to me personally. So I can't thank him enough for coming on. And one other thing about this interview, there are some spots where his audio drops a bit and it might be a little hard to hear. So I apologize about that. He was actually doing this interview from his car, and because he was at his brewery at the time working. And I was doing it at 1 a.m. and he was in the morning. So I think I was a little thrown off. I didn't really realize he didn't have his headphones in. So I apologize about that. It is definitely a grand experiment with some of the technical aspects of getting some of these episodes to you guys. I prefer to do them in person, but I've been doing a lot of Skype episodes lately because I want to get the right people, and I don't want to let distance be a deal breaker. So, it is a work in progress with that. So I hope it's not too much of a distraction. And yeah, check this out. This is my discussion with Peter Iwers, the ex-bass player from In Flames. I don't know if you followed the show at all or the themes.
No, I read the reason why I texted you or emailed you was because I read the interview you did with Mark Hunter. That's right, we're going to do that. So I figured, so I don't really follow it because I don't have time.
Yeah,
I do stuff right now. So when I'm home, basically, I just chill out, turn off the internet, and just hang with the kids and the wife, and try to not pay too much attention to anything. But I know about it, of course, and I've read that interview and I liked it, and plus we said back in last year in December that we were going to do this. So I thought it would be really cool to do because I haven't really done anything like this before.
Yeah. One of the big themes of the show is, came from my experience of leaving a band and trying to figure out what the hell I was doing. I think perhaps it seems like you're in a much different scenario because you already had things in the works and you have a home life, you have a family, so it wasn't as much of a mystery. But I find, and I guess you have a similar situation as Mark, where he, left the music business and kind of went somewhere else. And I know you're still working on music and doing something, but in terms of your day-to-day, I guess doing the brewery and that stuff, that's your like quote unquote day job, I guess you would say?
Well, what I do now is I have the restaurant still with Björn, 2112 in Gothenburg. So we do that. We have amazing staff who runs it for us as far as the day-to-day business goes down there. But we do everything behind the scenes as far as licenses, economy, and all that stuff. I try to be some sort of manager, but I don't really need to because I'm usually in the way.
Yeah.
But it takes a little bit of time, of course, out of my day. So right now we're trying to get this brewery national in Sweden. And that takes time. So I guess that's my main priority right now. But at the same time, I'm making another record with the new band Cyhra, with Jesper, who was in Flames, and Jake, a guy who was in a band called Amaranth, and Al, who's in Luca Turilli's Rhapsody, and like a really well-hired session drummer. So we're doing that. Plus, I write other music at the time. So I'm really keeping busy. But I'm, like you said before, I'd like to spend my day doing stuff that I like. And I try to focus instead. Today is beer. Tomorrow will be restaurant maybe, and Wednesday I'm going to write a song with somebody that I'm collabing with, and on Thursday we're going to, so I'm trying to do it like that.
No, that's pretty amazing. What's the new band like? Is it still the same kind of melodic heavy metal kind of style, or going something different?
It's so hard to describe because I've never been a person who actually thought about the genres that we were playing with In Flames. We were just making music, right? So the same thing for here. Everybody asks me, I don't really know what to tell them. It is a lot of melodies. It is metal, definitely. It's no extreme vocals. It's all clean.
Yeah.
You can definitely hear the touch of Jesper's guitar playing on it. A lot of harmonies, a lot of melodies, and some really cool riffing. Jake's voice is really amazing as well, and I think that's the people that liked Amaranth is really going to recognize the clean parts of Amaranth in his voice. And of course, Alex and I, we put our touch into it. And I don't know how to describe it. It is melodic metal. It's not melodic death metal.
Did you do a lot of writing with In Flames?
No, I did not. I only wrote my own bass parts, basically.
Yeah.
It was decided that Björn and Anders wrote the music, and before, when Jesper was in the band, he wrote the music, and I was always fine with that because I was always able to do my own bass parts. And
yeah,
I always been writing on the side, but never for In Flames really, except for my touch and except for all the little bass riffs you hear in the songs and the little licks here and there. They're all mine, but as far as the riffs went, it's all Björn and Jesper.
Do bass players get enough respect in metal? Are you the forgotten men?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I had a great time. I had some amazing years. I've never felt forgotten, actually. No, not at all. And I can't stress this enough. This is not me bitching about it. This is just how it was, and I was fine with that.
Yeah. So, you leaving the band, was it a long time coming? Is it something you've been thinking about for a while?
Yeah, I think I have. In retrospect, I wasn't aware that I was thinking about it. I guess going back about a year or so, I just started feeling that I wasn't happy. My body was aching, and I wasn't satisfied 100% with everything around it. I was always happy on stage, but as you know, being on tour, there's another 22 and a half hours every day. And it wasn't anything in particular. It was just that I just felt it coming, that I wasn't feeling well.
Yeah.
And once I figured out what it was, once I took that decision, okay, this is what it is. And I spoke to the guys, I got to leave. I'm sorry. I got to leave. I got to do something else. That's when I started feeling well again.
Mm-hmm.
So, but I didn't know at the time when I started feeling it that what the solution to my problem was or would be. I just needed to do something else. It was just, everybody wants the big drama thing, and but it wasn't like that. I just wanted to move on. I felt it was time to do something different. I'm 41 years old, and I've been doing this for 20 years. Almost.
20 years, half your. It's the same thing with me. I started doing, God forbid, we weren't called that at the time, but I was 16, and I left the band when I was 32. So It's literally the exact same thing of half your life. And I don't think a lot of people outside of, bands, I had X amount of success, and In Flames had a much even bigger impact that people don't understand is once you actually get success and you actually do fulfill your dreams, in a way, you have to find new ways of satisfying yourself or the bridge has been crossed. So it's like, all right, I'm here, I've done it. But then I think for you guys, like one of the, from the outside looking in, I noticed you guys were just very consistent. It seemed like you're very diligent about your recording process in terms of you never went too long without an album. You never went too long without a tour. The band seemed to always have a certain level. Did it ever feel like Groundhog Day or just boring or kind of doing the same things or repetitive?
Never boring. Definitely Groundhog Day sometimes. Yeah, absolutely. Waking up in a new city, going up, doing the same thing. But I always try to stop and take a breather and remember where I was, because I never wanted it to be blasé. Is that an English word?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. I always wanted to enjoy what I did and try and try and take my time with everything and try and appreciate everything I did. So whenever I felt like I was doing it, all over again, I mean, Groundhog Day is one day of looking at it, Saturday every night is another way of looking at it.
Yeah.
It depends on what you make of the situation. I gotta say, and this is not just being diplomatic, I just thinking I was really fortunate to be able to do this for so long, and doing this and traveling, making music, meeting people, seeing new places, and playing in front of people with bands that I love and stuff like that has been amazing, and I love that, and I wouldn't change it for the world. I've been asked a couple of times why I left, to try to explain it in words, and I can't.
Yeah.
It's all about the feeling, I try to live my life having a good feeling about everything that I do. I'm trying to live my life with a good vibe, do what I want. Again, like you said, spend my day doing what I love. And when I figured out that it wasn't that I didn't love it. It's just that I needed to do something else to be more fulfilled.
So you're married with children?
Yeah.
How many kids do you have?
I have 3 kids.
3 kids. What are the ages?
4, 8, and 17.
So, I mean, I'm going, maybe, I don't want to be out of my bounds, but I'm assuming that probably had a big deal to do with it, or would that be, might I be mistaken thinking that, or is that, I don't know.
No, yeah, I mean, I don't mind touring. That's why it's
but do they mind? Are they like, Daddy, come home? Or is your wife giving you crap and that whole thing?
It's actually she's very cool. She was never ever gave me crap about this.
Yeah.
No, they were always very supportive. Of course, the kids want their dad to be home, but at the same time, they grew up like this, so they didn't do anything else.
Yeah.
I went out and worked, and I never mind touring, and I'm not going to mind touring with a new band or any other projects that come my way either. It was just time to switch jobs, basically.
Have you thought about the whole prospect of, you're at one level, right? You're playing theaters, or you're in where you live, you guys are, you're playing arenas, and you're in this whole level. Does it ever come up to you about having to start at the bottom? And
yeah, of course.
Is that daunting, or is that scary, or is that weird?
I don't know. It's a bit humbling, I'd say.
Well, I can tell you firsthand it is.
Yeah. I mean, I spent all this time doing what I did, and I'd like to think that I always appreciated it and always was a nice guy and all that stuff. But so I'd like to think that karma, has something to do with whatever comes. But at the same time, we're not really thinking of that now. We're going to try and do something that's good for us with a new band. If it happens to be in front of 50 people in a basement and we are happy, we'll do it.
Yeah.
If it's in front of 15,000 people, we'll do that too. But I mean, that's obviously a cliche to say. I know that. But it is like that. It's all about happiness right now. It's all about doing what we love.
Well, I can tell you
the next step to see where we go.
I can tell you, as someone who started a new band and was, playing the bar in front of 50 people, you definitely, it becomes very clear whether or not you're doing it for the right reasons.
Of course, yeah.
Because there is no, immediate glory. I mean, obviously, I'm sure many people leave big bands and then the next thing they do, it explodes and they kind of never miss a step. But, I'm not doing that. So I'm kind of really starting from the bottom. But in a way, I kind of enjoy the challenge, of saying, all right, there's no crutch. Yeah, in a way, it's like if you can take something from 0 to 10, that I think that experience is, it gives you that same gratification, because there is a definitive challenge in front of you.
Yeah, I'm not really thinking about all that stuff. We've written music, we're recording right now actually, and the next step is to go out and play, and we're just gonna have to, take it as it comes and wing it. I guess I'm a person who likes to stay busy, and I have a lot of ideas, and that's why I do all these other stuff. That's why I started joined the brewery, I'd say, because Daniel started it. And that's why Björn and I started the restaurant, and that's why I have the band and the songwriting partners and all that stuff, and other upcoming projects that I do, because I like to stay busy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, that makes me happy, and that keeps me satisfied. A lot of people ask me, how can you do these 5 different things? Don't you get stressed? I was like, no. I guess get a little stressed when you ask me if I'm stressed, but other than that, I'm just having a good time, and I'm doing stuff that I love. So when we come out and play, let's see where we end up. You know, hopefully we'll have fun wherever.
Well, I think it's interesting that you're doing something with Daniel. You're doing something with Jesper. Is it, you know, do you and those 2 guys have kind of do you feel like your experiences in terms of wanting to exit the band there's some similarities there? Have you guys spoken about that at all, or is it each you have your own journey, so to speak?
Yeah, no, we haven't really spoken about it now. It's just that everybody was ready to leave at different times, you know. Jesper left, you know, like 10 years ago or something, 9 years ago, for his reasons, as all of you know, I'm sure. And Daniel left for his reasons, and I'm leaving for my reasons. I don't know. We haven't really discussed it.
Yeah.
I just know that this was right for me to do. You know, I loved being on stage and playing for the fans and for all friends that were there. I loved that, and I will never regret that at all. But as far as me leaving, it was just something I had to go with, a feeling I had to follow.
Yeah. It's no, because I think about those guys, and I'm very much a fan of those bands where it's the same group.
Yeah,
you know,
of course.
You would look at those bands. Was that ever, you know, like you said, you're speaking about feelings and how it feels. Did it ever feel not as in flames once those 2 guys left? Because it was solid, those 5 guys, for how long? What, 12, 13 years or something like that? Or
yeah. No, it did not at all, actually. Niklas came in when Jesper left, and he was filled with so much positive energy, and just, you know, he made us, I don't know how to, he just came in and he had this vibe and this energy about music and playing live, and he's so energetic, and that really, it was contagious, and we needed that at that time.
Yeah.
Because what had happened before. And when Daniel quit, Joe came in. He was younger. He had, you know, a lot of energy as well. He did a lot of positive energy, come from a different part. I never thought about it like that. And you know, being in the band, you just try to do what makes you happy, of course, and you don't really think about stuff like that. This is something I know a lot of fans think about, but at the same time, we did this because we wanted to make music and have a good time, and for the same reasons as they continue now without me, and they should. You know, it's about doing what makes you happy, and if certain people leaves along the way, and if you want to continue and everything's fine with everybody, then that's good, I think.
No, definitely. You mind talking about some of the old days a little bit?
Sure.
So I gotta tell you, I don't know if I've even told you this, but God forbid played with In Flames on your first tour, the one with Moonspell.
Moonspell, yeah. 99.
Yeah. So it was at a New Jersey club called Obsessions.
Yeah, I remember that.
And so the story, so I think this would be a good story for the listeners too. So this club, we were supposed to play there, you know, maybe 6 months before that with Seven Dust. And we had to sell tickets, right? They would make local bands sell tickets. And we didn't sell enough tickets. And they said, you have to play after Seven Dust. And we were like pissed off. We're like, all right. But guess what? The club closed before we got to play. So like Seven Dust is playing. They're like, stick around, see our guys, and God forbid. And they shut the club down. And it was like, it was this moment in our career where we were just so angry that we were like, we must get revenge. And then so right around the time you guys were playing, we were getting ready to sign our deal with Century Media, and we were kind of making some noise in Jersey. So we told the club owner, we're like, listen, we're signed to Century Media, so you're gonna put us on this show, and we're not selling any tickets.
Okay.
So yeah, and he did. I think we had to play like first or second. Like high school kids played after us, but we didn't care because we wanted to play with you guys because we were big fans. And I have to say that day changed our whole band career because
Cool.
because before that we were our music was real crazy. It was like hectic and like 50 parts in one song and was kind of noisy and and you guys were the first metal band I think I ever saw that smiled on stage. And like
That's a good sign.
because the music, like it was, you guys are a metal band, but there's a lot of rock and roll in what you guys do. A lot of like big chords and just those kind of the grooves are very much of like a rock band. What it kind of reminded me of me, and it made me like it was just very very influential. And I think if you look at that tour, so we opened the New Jersey show, and then Darkest Hour I think opened for you guys either in DC or Baltimore or wherever you played, and then Killswitch and Shadows Fall both opened for you guys in Worcester. So in a way, like I don't know how much you know about this, but I definitely feel like that tour and you guys coming there, it in a way launched our scene. Because
That's very flattering. Thank you. Now I knew about Darkest Hour and I knew about Killswitch. I didn't know about you, but I do remember that show though in New Jersey. I remember walking around with our bus driver Larry the whole day. That was my first time in New Jersey, and I only seen it in movies, right? So we just walked around and looked at everything, and then we played that show. And
well, there's not much around there.
No. I'm thinking about Brooklyn. Sorry. Yeah. No. I do remember the Jersey show though, but the Larry part was Brooklyn.
Well, I think my brother actually had a video of the show, and it exists somewhere. But I remember there wasn't like that many people there. It was maybe like 250, 300 people. But I remember people went ape shit when you guys played. Like you would have thought there was 1,000 people there by the enthusiasm.
Amazing for us. We had played one show in Milwaukee on Milwaukee Metal Fest. I remember, like the summer before, same summer, and then we came over. This was, I think, was it like late November or something?
I don't remember the exact time of year, but it's interesting because Milwaukee Metal Fest, you guys did your first show in the U.S. there. Meshuggah, their first appearance there, and also Opeth.
Yeah,
actually, because I watched Opeth the first time they ever played in the U.S. was there, so that was a really foundational event. But yeah, that tour, it was just. So I remember we had that video and it just changed everything, for us. What was it like in Sweden at that time? Because I feel like a lot of the narrative about heavy metal during the 90s was metal was dead in the 90s. Metal was, no one cared. And to me, I saw all this creative like explosion coming out of Europe and coming out of the US in the underground. And I guess it was more underground, but you guys basically essentially started in the mid to 90s, early that kind of, what was it like? Did you feel like metal was dead, or you just didn't even care or whatever?
No, exactly. We didn't really care. I mean, I think that's the thing. A lot of times when you're in it, you don't really care. You just focus on having fun and playing music. I remember we worked really hard to get over to the US. We really wanted to tour there, and it took forever, it seemed, but it only took like 2 years until we came over. Since I joined, because I joined in '97, just as they had recorded Horacle. We went out promoting that record, and then we met Colony, and that's when we came over. So it didn't take that long, but at that time, it felt like forever. But we never really thought about metal. I do remember, though, how when the grunge came in and killed all the hair metal.
Yeah.
Basically. I do remember that because I was a huge hair metal fan. I still am. I love 80s music. And the grunge came in and all of that stuff just died. That's what I remember. But metal was never dead for us. Gothenburg was exploding with all these great... Gothenburg, Sweden, all of these great metal acts, I think.
Well, I remember Michael from Opeth was saying, though, that even though there were all these bands, there weren't a lot of fans like that. Like it was still very underground. It was almost because everyone was a musician, so it was that it was still like it didn't really pop there till later.
Yeah, that's exactly true. Every time we came home from a tour, and that took a long time, people were asking us, "Oh, so what do you do?" "I'm a musician." "Oh, okay, so you play at," and then they said the name of the local pub, and it's like, "No, I've just been touring in Europe." It's like, "Oh, okay." But nobody ever knew, and all the people around us thought, "Oh, that's so happy you can be out and play with your friends and have a good time. Maybe now it's time to grow up and get a job." And that tired bullshit. But all of a sudden, Sweden looked up at us and metal, and we got a little bit of recognition, and the whole scene opened up, and it made metal huge in Sweden. And I think that that definitely helped us as far as, because when you're out touring and have a good time, and then you come home and nobody knows what you're doing, and nobody really recognizes you as a real band or stuff like that. It was just I was very grateful when that happened. That not that I wanted to be recognized as far as or that the band got famous, but just that I remember just feeling that our band was taken seriously in Sweden as well, and that was really cool.
When did you actually start to make a living? Because the thing that's always fascinating about me is I feel like now they kind of fast track bands, right? So you have a new band and the label's like, all right, you need to tour for a year and sleep on the ground and eat shit and just, but then I noticed a lot of the European bands, it seems like we wouldn't see you guys over here until you had released 4 or 5 albums, and you were kind of, by the time you came to America, you were very developed, and the band was more seasoned. Whereas like I feel like now there's much more of a we sign a new band and we want them to be what they're going to be right now, instead of just letting that happen. When did you guys actually, when did it go from being a part-time thing to this is our jobs?
Yeah, it was always a full-time thing, but it was never a full-time thing that made us money. I guess it's...
How did you survive?
We worked odd jobs here and there. You took your time. We had some of us had help from the unemployment registry. I don't know what it's called in America, but when you're unemployed, you get a certain check with basically nothing, but at least you can pay your rent and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Some just saving up, not having really any high living expenses, and when we went on tour, we usually made a little bit of money, so you could put in that and kind of divide that into until you made your next.
So I'm going to cut in on our interview with Peter real quick to do another promo for one of the Jabberjaw Media podcasts. This one is called Pour Taste, as in POUR, and it is the go-to source for all things cocktail. Through years of consultation work with hotels, restaurants, and bars, John and Lindsay Yeager are now bringing their cocktail and spirit prowess to the Pour Taste podcast. Each week, John discusses spirit and cocktail history while guiding guests through recipes. The podcast also features award-winning authors, spirit importers, and tastemakers to discuss trends and other tidbits from today's cocktail community. So check that out. So you joined during Horacle, right?
I joined when Horacle was recorded, just before it came out.
Okay. Did you record on it, or you just kind of showed up?
I just showed up. Actually, Niklas and I, who's playing guitar now, we joined together in '97 because Björn was still playing drums. And Björn started playing.
I'm trying to picture that. I can't picture it.
He plays drums on both Horacle and Just Race.
I know he did, but I still can't picture it. I know it. Intellectually, I know it, but I can't see it.
Then he started playing guitar. Niklas quit, and Daniel came aboard, and I guess that's when we started touring for real. Back in '98, '99.
Yeah,
somewhere. That's when we started touring a lot and did all these things. And I guess since then we've been sort of able to make a living of it. not well, but still we were able to focus on it at least, and everything else came second. We want to. There was no jobs. I can't go on tour because I have a job. We all went on tour because we wanted. That's what we wanted to do. We wanted to make the band grow and have a good time on the road, basically, and nothing else mattered.
Yeah, well, that's the same experience we had. We essentially, once we got a record deal, we were like, we had a manager, and we all said, all right, we're all just going to move home with our parents and just know we're not going to make money for X amount of time and just grind it and take advantage of the opportunity while it exists. I think when you're in that position, especially when when what you're doing is special and that there's something there, because I don't know when you started, but I remember when we were sucked and you didn't have something special, and that was very obvious, to when all of a sudden, like, oh, wait a second, we're actually kind of onto something, and you realize, hey, we may never have this opportunity again with these people, and that commitment and that dedication it feeds itself, I think, to what eventually becomes that success,
Yeah, for sure.
So here's the thing about all us American bands, because we all just worshipped all the Swedish bands. I think to a certain degree we still do, and but I think there's a reason, is that when you kind of look at it in a broad sense, there's a level of musicianship that seemed to be a step ahead of most of the world. And I've heard a few theories, like I've heard that, well, they teach music in the schools, and that the government sometimes helps bands out with stuff. So is that all that is true?
Yeah, that's true. But I think a lot of time, first I got to say that, you guys are, there's so many great bands in America. We got God forbid, obviously, Dark Sour, like I said, Killswitch Engage, you got Shadows Fall, you got Devil Driver, Hatebreed, and going up like Slipknot and all that. There's so many great musicians and so many great bands, and you got As I Lay Dying.
Tons.
Some of them Wolf, so I have a lot of bands on Earth that I love. I don't know what it is. I've been asked that question a gazillion times. I think that definitely has something to do with it. We were able to borrow rehearsal space. It never cost us any money. If we didn't have equipment, they had equipment there that we could borrow.
Who's they? Where was these? Who let you borrow it?
The government.
Are you serious?
They had in the school, in the basements, they usually had like rehearsal spaces, and there they had equipment for everybody to borrow. You had to sign up. You had to become a member and do all that stuff, and you had to do a certain amount of hours, because those hours were then deducted towards a fee that they got so that they can keep on providing instruments for the kids, and that was great. And then I guess Sweden, especially Gothenburg, is so small, so everybody knew each other and everybody was inspired by each other, helping each other out. With one band, let's say at the Gates, they became big very fast, and then you had Dark Tranquillity at the time. They could open up for them. You had Ceremonial Oath, who opened up for them. You had In Flames, same thing. That was before my time. And everybody was always helping each other out. And I think that this was, all of these are key ingredients to why it is like it is, why the music has been so, successful in Sweden. That it was just, there was, as far as I understand, as far as I grew up, there was never ever any rivalry. It was always just a good time. Everybody was just helping each other out, which is funny because now that I've gotten into this beer business with the brewery, it's the same thing. There's 400 breweries in Gothenburg or something, and everybody's giving each other tips. Everybody's helping each other out with recipes and contacts. It's just this big whole wonderful community, and I love it. It fits me perfectly because I like to help, and I obviously need help a lot of times too. And I think it goes hand in hand. It's the same thing. Beer and the music, it's the same thing, and it's wonderful.
Yeah, I have this theory that, so the way I found out about In Flames was I had this little store called Curmudgeon Music, and there was literally a sign on Horacle, and it said for fans of At the Gates.
Yeah,
And
okay.
so that, and my theory is essentially that because what happened is there was all these metalheads that got into Slaughter the Soul, but then they broke up right away.
Yeah.
And then also Carcass, who to me I think in a way set the table with melodic death metal on
Yeah.
on Heartwork. They both broke up right around the same time, and there was this big void. And then you guys showed up with Horacle, and it was almost like,
Yeah.
but not only was the record great, but it's like, oh, they're going on tour, and then we could see you. And because we couldn't see those bands, or at least, obviously, I think At the Gates did, I think 2 tours in the States, and then Carcass did a bunch of tours, but at that time was, had broken up. But like, do you feel like you kind of capitalized off of At the Gates, going away?
I never thought about it. Actually, I never, like I said before, none of us really stopped and thought about why we were doing it. We had a good time. We never really thought about it. I guess you could say we were at the right place at the right time. So, and that might definitely have something to do with it. But I like to think that if these bands were still around, they would have opened up the market even more, because it took a bunch of years before we actually were able to go out and play decent shows. And I think that, I think that even if they would still be around, I think that I would have been around at that time. I think that all of the bands like us and Soilwork and Dark Tranquillity and Arch Enemy, obviously Mike would have had to quit Carcass to start Arch Enemy, but I think we would all have still been around, but we would have been together with At the Gates, because that's the mentality of the Swedish mentality,
Yeah.
So that's how I'd like to think about it, but you never know. Obviously it helped. They had cleared the path for us a little bit, definitely.
Yeah, it was I don't know. I think about that time period for me personally, and I was, 17, 18, and when you're that age, all you do is you're like a garbage compactor for stuff, and you just absorb everything.
Yeah.
And I was lucky being in New Jersey, because we had like the store I mentioned, but there was this other store called Vintage Vinyl. You guys probably did a signing there, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And they, before the internet was really a place where you could buy music and find things, you had to get it in person. And they had, so I got the first Children of Bodom on import. I got the first Darkane album on import, just because I was lucky enough to have a store that had that stuff. And in a lot of ways, that's why we ended up being one of the first American bands to kind of adopt that style, because we happened to live in a place where we could access the music and steal the riffs.
Yeah, I know. I definitely that's how everybody inspired. I like to call it.
Usually when I'm doing the show, I'll kind of take people through the whole career and kind of talk about that. But to be truthful, I don't think it really serves us to go through every kind of period. I think I'm sure you're. What's that?
We could sit for a while then.
It's a long time. Usually I'll reminisce. The one thing that I think the listeners would be interested to hear. The only time, God forbid, ever went to Japan was with In Flames.
Yeah.
One of my greatest memories. Obviously the first time being in Japan, but it was also with In Flames and Chimera, good friends, great bands. And no, man, it's
great.
What's that?
That was a great time.
It was. Unfortunately, we didn't get to do all the shows. We only did the Tokyo shows. Like, that's one of those things, like I said, when you're young and you're into a band and it's groundbreaking for you, and then all of a sudden now you're in that league. That's such a big moment. I'm sure, like you guys, when perhaps when you toured with Slayer or something like that.
I always think about the time we toured with Slayer a couple of times, and it's one of my all-time favorite bands. And the first time was 2002, I think, in America with Soulfly and Down the Sun. And That was one of the best tours I've ever done, hands down. They were all so nice to us and helped us out with everything we needed, and I just loved it.
I mean, do you think about kind of the legacy of the band and kind of that global impact? Is it something you can even kind of even quantify, or is it too kind of crazy to think about?
It's hard to think of. I mean, I don't. It's hard to picture. I consider myself just a normal dude,
Yeah.
as normal as I get, I guess. But I never think about it. But when I meet people who tell stuff like this to me, I try to take it in. It's really hard because all I ever wanted to do was to have fun and play music. I never thought about myself being an influential musician or somebody that somebody would look up to. So when I get this, it's kind of, it's obviously very cool to hear and very flattering, but I never think about it like that, and I think it's, I don't know. I just don't ever think about it.
Well, I just think like certain bands, like I go back to this, what I said before about consistency, right?
Mm-hmm.
Some bands have their moment and it lasts a year or two. Some bands have their moment and it lasts 10 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
But you guys, it was just and I think when the consistency becomes something that lasts 1 or 2 decades, then all of a sudden the band is no longer a band. The band is an institution.
Yeah.
Like I put a band like Hatebreed in that boat. I'm sure there's a handful of other bands like a band like Madball, in the hardcore scene or something. We think about bands like Motorhead, who people don't remember. Motorhead was never the biggest band. They were never an arena band. But they were consistent and they became an institution.
Yeah.
And I think when I hear about the stuff you're doing now, I think the thing that what doing a band does is essentially you're an entrepreneur, right?
Yeah.
And like, do you think about that, how your experience just kind of starting your own business and doing your own thing lends you to now do these other businesses?
Yeah, of course. Definitely. I'm very grateful for everything. I think I've said the word grateful 100 times, but I am.
That's good.
I'm extremely grateful for all of my life and where it has taken me. But I think that a lot of it is hard work, of course. A lot of it is being at the right place at the right time. But I think also that, like you said, you're an entrepreneur and you have to be able to think outside the box to do the things that you'd like to do, no matter whichever business you'd like to do them in. And I think that doing what we do now with the brewery, starting everything from scratch, it's really humbling to do that because it's a lot of hard work. We'll go up early in the morning. We'll go out to the brewery. We make the beer. It takes a long time. We take care of the beer during the fermentation process. We bottle the beer or keg it. We sell it to the stores and the restaurants, and we deliver it. And we do all of that ourselves because we like to be with it all the time. We like to stay throughout the whole course. Obviously, this is not going to work when or if the beer business becomes bigger for us. But at this time, this is something we'd like to do, and I think it makes us. I don't know. It makes us feel happy about what we're doing instead of just licensing something away, putting our name on it, and letting somebody else brew it. We actually do everything ourselves, and I think that's very. A lot of people think, "Why do you do that? You could always hire somebody." Yeah, but it wouldn't be the same. It's craftsmanship. Same like music. It's all of these are the same thing. You're an artist, or you compose something. Or you create something like a chef or a brewer in this instance, and I think it makes both me and Daniel very happy having this brewery right now. This is what we want to do, and we're super psyched about it. So I hope we get to ship over to America in the future.
Yeah, man, I think that would be amazing, and it's inspiring to hear, because I think in a lot of ways, if you look at many of the newer businesses, it is about being more personal. And making things, and I think it can be anything, right? It's not necessarily about the product itself. It's just about, and this is, I think, almost what's kind of cool about the technology thing. Like you look at something like Yelp, right? Where people, the customer is active in the product,
Yeah.
and the people who make it can be receptive to their needs and address it, and especially when you're doing on a personal level, I think that's really, people are in many ways, you're saying people are a little more willing maybe to pay a little more for something that they know where the person on the other end gives a shit.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I think so, at least, if they can afford it, of course. But we don't, I mean, I would, of course, we want to make a living out of this, and create a totally new business. But again, going back to the music, that's not why we started this. We started this because it's fun, this is something we'd like to do.
Right on, man.
Same thing with a new band, I like to mention that Cyhra, it's called.
How do you spell that?
I'll send you the spelling. Cyhra.
Okay.
So you can look us up, Cyhra Official, on Instagram and Facebook, and Cyhra.com. And
is there any music out there for people to listen to?
Not yet. No, we're recording right now. Drums are done. Most guitar parts are done, and I'm going to start bass soon and vocals soon. And it's going to come out, I guess, October, November. So that's something I really want to mention. And of course, the brewery. Check out us on oddislnd.se for Sweden, SE, or Odd Island Brewing on Instagram or Facebook to see, because we're pretty personal, and it's you can see our way of making beer.
Right on, man. I think that'll do it, man. Really, thank you so much for coming on, and
sure.
People definitely will want to hear from you. We'll all miss you on the road, but it's amazing to see that you're still doing music. You're still working with, it's I think the thing that's beautiful about all this is that the relationships we have being in a band, that those are lifetime relationships, and you're still working with those people that you were working with the band, and you seem happy and productive, and it's definitely I'm happy for you. I'm inspired. I'm gonna start me a brewery today.
Do it. Now I gotta say that I'm cooking a lot of stuff, music and other stuff, because, like I said, it makes me happy. And when we're wrapping it up and I'm saying everything, it seems like I want to do advertising for everything. But I mean, just follow me on Instagram and you'll see everything that I do, all the artists that I collab with, and all the other shenanigans that I'm getting involved with these days.